I've been giving a lot of thought to my Broadcom position, specifically because a couple months ago we reported on a piece of news that emerged that supposedly Apple is working on designing its own Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chips. Obviously, this would be a big deal for Broadcom. Broadcom is a top chip supplier for devices like the iPhone and the iPad. And in fact, Broadcom reported in its recent 2022 annual report that they estimate Apple is about 20% of their revenue. That's right. So out of about the 33 billion in revenue Broadcom hauled in last year, roughly 6.6 billion of it was somehow tied to Apple. So potentially losing out on those Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chips would hurt quite a bit for Broadcom investors. That being said, I think the company addressed this, albeit indirectly, in that 2022 annual report. I've been doing some investigative work. Let me share with you what I found because I think it is quite interesting. Before continuing, let me remind you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if this video is helpful as you do your own investment research and increase your knowledge of business and technology. We really appreciate the support as subscribing to the channel helps us continue putting out content like this. I'm sharing with you here Broadcom's 10K, their annual filing for 2022. And on page 10 of the filing, there's this really interesting note about manufacturing operations. That's right, Broadcom is not actually a complete fabless chip design company. They actually hold on to a couple of manufacturing facilities. So there's some specific points of interest here in this paragraph. I'll point them out to you here. Broadcom says that they use their internal fabrication facilities for products utilizing their innovative and proprietary processes, such as our F-bar, filters, and wireless communications, and vertical cavity surface emitting laser and side emitting lasers based on gallium arsenide and indium phosphide lasers for fiber optic communications. By doing so, we can protect our intellectual property and accelerate time to market for our products. This is incredibly significant. Let me show you why. I have our semiconductor industry flowchart pulled up here, and typically we file Broadcom under the fabless chip designer segment of the semiconductor industry. Fabless chip designers here on the middle right section, these are companies that design chips. They don't have any manufacturing. They outsource that oftentimes to a Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing, chip fabs. They're in the middle. And indeed, Broadcom does report in its 10K that Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing produced roughly 90% of the wafers contract manufacturers used in 2022. So the wafers being those big metallic discs that you see someone in a bunny suit holding, and those things eventually get chopped up into small chips and packaged into the final product. Broadcom is one of the largest fabless chip designers out there, one of the largest semiconductor companies, period. But they're not just fabless. Because of what they report in their annual filings, they do have a small manufacturing base. So they're also an IDM, an integrated device manufacturer. They're to the left of chip fabs. Broadcom says it has 3 manufacturing operations, one in Singapore, which is historically the company's headquarters before the company Avago and Broadcom merged back in 2016. They have a manufacturing operation in the small town of Breiningsville, Pennsylvania in the Lehigh Valley, and they have a third one in Fort Collins, Colorado. And it's specifically this facility in Fort Collins, Colorado, where Broadcom says it manufactures its F-bar filters, or film bulk acoustic resonator filters, which are a key component in the Wi-Fi Bluetooth chips used by Apple and other smartphone and mobile device companies. I think this is a very important and amazingly, obviously overlooked element to Broadcom's business. So this is a chart that we put together after the company's last earnings report a couple of months ago. You can see the wireless segment there in the middle. That's where a lot of the revenue comes from Apple. Although Broadcom probably sells other components to Apple as well that don't fall under the wireless segment, but nevertheless, wireless, the iPhone, other smartphone components, important part of Broadcom's business, almost 25% of revenue in the last quarter. And so obviously, if Apple is successful in designing its own Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip, this segment is going to take a sizable hit. But it is very notable that Broadcom doesn't just design these chips, they also have some proprietary technology wrapped up in the manufacture of these chips. So Apple can design its own Wi-Fi Bluetooth device, but there may not be a readily available manufacturing equivalent for these devices once they design them, since Broadcom has obviously deemed it valuable to hold on to this manufacturing division in Fort Collins, Colorado, to handle some of these key components of their wireless modules. I think this could make Broadcom a much stickier chip design business than we often give it credit for. And it's, of course, not just Broadcom's wireless segment that might have some manufacturing advantage here. As the company also mentioned in that 2022 annual filing, the company also maintains control of its 3 and 5 group semiconductor manufacturing processes. So again, not just those wireless FBAR components, but it also specifically called out the gallium arsenide and indium phosphide, which fall into groups 3 and 5 on the periodic table. Obviously, Broadcom has some intellectual property here that it can protect, that it utilizes in a number of other applications, including its servers for businesses, data centers, internet service provider communications equipment, and the like. All of these qualities add up to what I believe, for myself personally, makes for a fantastic dividend and growth stock for the long term. As we've mentioned in videos before, Broadcom generates some incredibly high profit margins, 49% free cash flow profit margins last year. But I'm going to have more updates on Broadcom coming up soon. As I record this, I'm awaiting Broadcom's first quarter fiscal year 2023 earnings report, be doing some coverage of that, and of course, looking for some detail from management on that massive mega merger with VMware, which is currently undergoing some review from regulators in the European Union, in the US, and I expect management will probably have a couple of comments on how that is progressing. Stay tuned for more. Thanks all. Hope you have a good weekend.